Super excited to actually buy and read this book called Just Ask, a powerful, provocative book by Andy Lopata. Why seeking support is your greatest strength. And I'm sure when we attended this PSS 2021, his talk was phenomenal. And people were glued to his talk, and there was a lot of Q&A which happened, Shri. Now, if you remember at the end of the talk, right? So let me ask you this. How often do you truly open up and be honest when asked how you are? It's, it's, I'm sorry.
Earlier, I would not do that, but now, after many years of deliberate efforts, I do it, especially with people with whom I can easily, comfortably share.
Absolutely. And this book is all about that, Shri, Vidya, and Praveen, and whoever is going to listen to this book review later. Entrepreneurs are under a lot of pressure to perform these days. People talk about entrepreneurship, solopreneurship, this and that. Often they encounter a lot of stress, complexity, and difficult situations or difficult choices that they have to make. For many entrepreneurs, they struggle to know who to talk to, for support and that camaraderie as they face these challenges. Sometimes they share too much publicly. They share too much publicly on social media, and they damage their own brand. That's what Andy says in his book Just Ask. Sometimes they bottle things up too much, in which weighs them down. So this book, which is Just Ask, is going to explore the right way to ask for help, so you can rebound feeling better and stronger than ever. So, ladies and gentlemen, this book is dedicated by Andy Lopata to somebody called Richard. Richard was a very nice man, very huge, tall, and happy-go-lucky guy. He always helped people whenever people asked for help. It all happened in the March of 2016. He was a gentle giant, ladies and gentlemen, and he always wore a smile on his face, and he shook hands with people. He helped them, and suddenly one fine day they heard the news that he passed away. Andy heard the news that he passed away, and he traveled to his place to attend the funeral. And many of Richard's friends actually flew from other countries. He was such a nice gentleman. Nobody seemed to know what really happened. Richard was cremated in mid-April, and a few weeks after his death, Andy says he attended, unfortunately, by several people, as I said, from different countries. Over half of the people who attended the funeral actually took an opportunity to talk about this gentleman called Richard, how good he was, how he was helping others. There was this situation where one of his South African's contact has flew for the funeral, and she spoke at the funeral saying Richard has actually flew to South Africa just on his own expenses, ticket, visa, and everything on his own expenses, to set up some non-charitable trust for that lady, and she was so grateful for that. And what they found later was actually, when they were talking among themselves, Richard has committed suicide. Yes, you have heard it right. Every time we met, they were very interesting. He was very interesting, and he never talked about his own problems. He never shared what he wanted, but he always was very helpful and helping others. The fact that he helped others, but listen to this very amazing statement. But he did not leverage the gift to generate an income, meant that he suffered some financial difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. And those difficulties contributed greatly to his ultimate decision to take his own life. So Andy was talking about in the prologue of the book. He was talking about all those people were in a very good positions, if only Richard could have asked them for help, whether it is monetary help, whether it is professional help, whether whatever help it could be. All those people who were talking so great about Richard were in a position actually to help him. So I was really shocked when I read about this prologue, and that's where Andy Lopata was motivated to write this book. And it's not just about online interactions with relative strangers, though. But my question is, how often do you truly open up and be honest with your friends and family when asked how you are, right? So we might impress people, ladies and gentlemen, with our strengths, but we connect with people through our weaknesses, said by Greg, and it's mentioned in the book by Andy. And the next one is vulnerability is not weakness, it's our greatest measure of courage. Brené Brown, and she is an amazing author. She has written several books, right? So a decade or two ago, we were overwhelmed by this self-help gurus, and actually, I was one among them when I was actually giving those speeches, telling people, when somebody asks you how are you should always say, "I'm excited, I am awesome, I am fantastic." But simply saying or "I am okay, I am fine" is bad. That's what I used to tell during my talks. Instead, they told us to be positive every time, right? And suddenly everybody is saying, "I am brilliant, I am fantastic, as I mentioned, I am great." When somebody asked you, "How are you?" with a broad, toothy grin that often hid a very different truth, ladies and gentlemen. So there was this business meeting which Andy attended, and one of the questions from the stage, the gentleman, the speaker asked was, "What stage is your business in its development?" There were options given: A, B, C, D, E. Brand new, which is less than 6 months; young, which is less than 2 years; mature and stable; D, growing; and E, business in decline. And not one person in that group was prepared to admit that their business was in decline. Everybody had the business that was either it is in early stages or mature and stable or growing. And he says there were liars in that room. There were liars, everybody. I know that there were liars in the room, and that's what Andy says. So, my question to you today is, how are you, Sri? How are you, Praveen? How are you, Vidya? How are you, Coach CK? How are you, Divakar? And this is a very important uh, question that we need to think. And in this book, the things that has been beautifully mentioned is, it's not that you share everything and anything with everybody. It's very important that you know whom are you sharing your vulnerability with, your challenges with, or your problems with. That's very important. So many things stop us from asking for help, ladies and gentlemen. What we don't always realize is that the people want to help, they like to help, and they will feel hurt if we don't let them help. That's what Andy says in his book, Just Ask. Now, there is a myth busting slide which says you don't need to be positive all the time. That's fine. You don't need to be positive all the time. There will be situations you will be negative, you will be low, you will be down, or you'll be in tears. And that's absolutely fine, Andy says. It's important for individuals to know that it's okay. That it's absolutely okay to acknowledge what we feel, what challenges us, and what is holding us back. You don't need to be positive all the time. And this amazing topic which is called Hippo time. Let me explain you what is this Hippo time. It's okay to be negative occasionally too. In Paul McGee's excellent book Sumo, Sumo, which means shut up and move on. He talks about the importance of hippo time. Maggie explains that one of his friends told him that he did not want to move on. As the book encourages, when something goes wrong, he just wanted to wallow. What is wallowing? Have you ever seen a hippopotamus wallowing in the mud? That watery mud, and being lazy, and none of us want to hear some well-meaning person telling us to cheer up. When you're actually sad, when you're in loss of business or loss of some person, I mean, people cannot tell us, "Hey, come on, everything is going to be fine, just cheer up." And when we have just experienced a major setback or disappointment, said his friend, telling someone to sumo, shut up and move on, might in circumstances be both insensitive and unhelpful, particularly if they have experienced a serious and significant difference in their life. So I want you to feel that it's okay to share, ladies and gentlemen, that it's absolutely okay to share. To recognize that constantly being independent and self-sufficient, sometimes it might be counterproductive. Okay, pretending that you know all the answers doesn't going to serve anyone. Yes, there are so many things that we do not know, and it's good if you actually tell that you don't know. When you actually tell them that you know all the answers and you're not asking for help, Andy says it damages your morale and confidence. It means you repeat mistakes that others have already made and learned from. And it leads to inefficiency that costs you and people around you. So, ladies and gentlemen, vulnerability doesn't need to be framed as a weakness. Saying I don't know doesn't mean that you are not a star performer, high achiever, or ambitious. Changing your mind or admitting your mistakes shouldn't indicate weakness. That's what Andy says in this book. He says vulnerability is a strength, and in fact, humility is becoming increasingly important as a business skill. Yeah, I'm sure you might have attended so many webinars online where people were selling his products and courses, and one of the things that they talk about is, once they were broke, they were not brilliant, and people were all talking bad things about them and all that. So yeah, people do want to help you. So by the way, people do want to help you. We enjoy helping people we care about, isn't it? That's what Hippo time is all about. The important thing is not to wallow for too long. That's what the slide says about Hippo time. Otherwise, the negative feelings will start to take over and control your actions and responses. Now, the fourth point in the slide. So first, in order to process your feelings, move through the stages of frustration and grief. So that's fine. That's absolutely fine. There will be some situations in life you might not be able to handle all alone. And it's okay to cry. It's okay to wallow, but not for a longer time, right? And Hippo time talks about timing is the key. So it's an amazing concept. You might want to read the book. Uh, Next thing I want to talk about is masterminding, or Andy says you got to develop deep relationships with key people who will meet with you regularly. And I think this is one of the meetings that we are meeting about book reviews. And today I'm privileged to review Just Ask, a book by Andy Lopata. So these people should listen to your challenges, you explore things with them, help you find solutions, and hold you accountable for your actions, right? That's masterminding. You have to have mastermind group. That's what Andy says in his book, and it's amazingly written. It talked about what is mastermind, who is a coach, who is a mentor. He talked about the differences of mentor, coaching, and all these things. Our concern about how other people see and judge us is the number one factor that prevents us from being truly authentic in the way we live our lives. Quite often, actually, ladies and gentlemen, we worry about people, what will people think about our actions, our looks, or our lives. They are not. They're not, Andy says. It's our ego that makes us believe that people have an opinion about what we do. It is our ignorance that drives us to let their opinion shape our lives. Isn't it beautiful statement? It is our ego that makes us believe that people have an opinion about us. Yeah. And there is a fifth chapter in this book which talks about how can we trust and be trusted. What an amazing chapter. Each chapter is a gem in its own way. You can just pick up the book and just pick up each chapter on what do you want. Let's say if you want to start a mastermind group, just open the chapter called Masterminding. Or if you want to know how can we trust and be trusted, it's the fifth chapter. If we can't develop a trusted circle around us, that's what Andy says, then it's almost impossible for us to feel safe and secure, opening up and being truly transparent and vulnerable. So you'll find that in this chapter on how we can trust and be trusted. right? We need to build environments, safe spaces where people know that they can share without the fear of judgment, ladies and gentlemen, or or the negative impact on their career or life, right? So there is another chapter, the sixth chapter, which talks about how do self-compassion and gratitude impact on our ability to ask for help. Isn't it an amazing topic, right? Learning to be kind to yourself, learning to be kind to yourself, to give yourself a break, showing gratitude to others who can make it easier for you to allow others to support you. So Andy talks about letting go of perfectionism. There is no perfectionism. Perfectionism is a challenge for many, and self-compassion, including accepting our own faults most of the time. So it's an important element of being able to do that. Many don't want to be perceived as weak or unqualified by asking for help. That's why most people do not ask for help. If I don't ask for help, then I don't get rejected. This is one of the things that Andy mentioned in his book. This is a common self defense mechanism, right? For whatever reason, we take rejection very personally, right? Which leads to negative emotions, and that in turn can affect self esteem. So, yeah, that's what this book is all about. And let me ask you a question. Probably you can type it in the chat box. How do you feel when you help someone you like or love, particularly when you know that your support has had a positive impact on their life or career? Please type in the chat box. I repeat my question. How do you feel when you help someone you like or love, particularly when you know that your support has had a positive impact? Absolutely, Brian. We feel good. We feel awesome, isn't it? I feel so nice when I just asked for for Praveen's new book. I mean, he's sending it. He created it today, and I'm sure Praveen might have been feeling really good about it, right? So yes, Coach CK, feel really amazing and generous. Absolutely right. So asking people to help is not the same as allowing others to do things for you. It's neither delegation nor abdication. It's collaboration. That's what Andy says in his amazing book. So there's some questions that you need to ask and talk about. What do you need to talk about? Why are you sharing? Even before you're sharing your vulnerability, these are the questions Andy asked us to ask yourselves. Why are you sharing? When is the right time to share? How much you should share? Where do you share? And with whom do you share? Such an important point, isn't it? So another the slide that you see there is here are Andy's top 10 steps to help you get that value. First one is the right ingredients. I'm not going to go through everything, right? It could be only two things I'll share here. The right ingredients of masterminding I'm talking about. The success of mastermind group is heavily reliant on the right mix of the people within its ranks. If the abilities and experience of the participants are too broad, you will find some people questioning the value of the group that can bring them, right? So while others lose confidence in the value they can bring to the group, right? So he says the best mastermind group is one where everyone brings equal value in one way or other, right? And the next point which I want to share is commitment. Depending on your format, the numbers in a mastermind group need to be fairly low. This is one of the eye opener, which even actually I was thinking to start a mastermind group, where our own speakers can help each other start these online courses, bring in some ideas. It could be right from making videos to which platforms to use, what softwares to use to edit and all that. And there's so many things which can actually help each other if we have a mastermind group. And he says, it should be fairly low. The number of masterminding people should be fairly low, rather than like in networking events, right? He says, I believe that the ideal number is around 6 people, not more than 6 people, right? If you restrict your membership to that number, you need a high level of commitment. That's what Andy says, right? And another point which I want to share is a clear agenda. agree on the agenda for meetings that is destined to best meet the objectives of the group that has set. So he says, I suggest appointing a chair for each meeting and rotating the responsibility to plan and take control of the agenda, right? And he talked about mentoring. Who is a mentor? Our Irish speaker and expert on high trust relationship, Sean Woffer, describes mentor as someone who can transfer role specific skills or knowledge that helps the mentee accelerate their development. Yeah. So that's what it's called, mentor. A mentor is not just a sounding board, ladies and gentlemen. That's what Andy says in his book. He always looks for someone who can give him a clear advice, challenge his convictions, and hold him accountable for what have been promised to do. Right. So the more specific you can be about what you need to achieve, the more clearly you will be able to identify the ideal person to support you. So ask yourself these questions. Uh, where do I want to be in the next 5 or 10 years? So as a speakers, we're all professional speakers, authors, and all that, right? So where do we want to be in next 5 or 10 years? What needs to happen first? What is that one important thing which needs to happen first? And yes, on that slide, you see Andy Lopata in color picture. And the next question is, what is stopping me from getting there? Another question, what challenges do I struggle with the most? Once you know the answers to these questions, you can ask yourself, who do I know who has achieved what I am looking to achieve? Ideally, for a similar starting point. So, for this, I would like to take the example of Praveen Shekhar here. I'm not an author yet, okay? I haven't written a single book, but Praveen has authored so many books, and he's experienced. He even has a course, where he teaches people how to write a book in 100 days, where I have actually seen Praveen and his daughter's session at APSS. It was amazing. It was mind blowing. I made notes. So the question is, who do I know? So Praveen is an author. I know Praveen. And so Praveen would be the best person to actually mentor me or coach me to become an author, right? So who do I trust and respect? This is another question. Who will challenge me robustly? How do I find the right mentor? These are the questions that you need to ask yourself, right? And the core ingredients of which I already shared, guys. And there are few more chapters in the book, amazing chapters. One of the chapters is how can organizations and leaders encourage vulnerability and sharing, right? These are a few more chapters which I liked personally. So I thought I'll just put the chapter names there. How do women and men differ in our willingness to seek help? Isn't it a great chapter? So many insights about men and women and how they ask for help, and so many things are mentioned in this. Is it harder for introverts to ask for help? Isn't it an amazing chapter again? There are introverts and extroverts, isn't it? Extroverts can easily open up and ask for help, but what about introverts? And the next chapter is modern life changing the way younger generations share? Yep. So I was not born in the era of internet, right? But I am using internet. But what about younger generations? How they are sharing? Are there cultural differences in our willingness to open up and ask for help? So, a fear mindset, Andy says a fear mindset is very dangerous. When people are scared, they will do things which are not right. Rejection is a really powerful emotional experience, ladies and gentlemen. There are many people who have learned to not to ask for help because they have been let down and disappointed before. We as a society need to become better at recognizing that somebody asking for help is very likely to be worthy of receiving it. That is why whenever somebody asks me for help, that's what Andy says. I try to find the good part in me that says this person probably did not want to ask for help. But the fact that someone is asking for help means that there should be a predisposition to reach out, to give them the help that they need. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is an amazing book. Just Ask by Andy Lopata. Why seeking help is the biggest strength. Thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.